Yo guys, what's up? This video is going to be about nutrition and nutrition education, some of the problems around that, and some possible solutions. But we're going to start with the problems. Okay, so one of the primary factors in what food is allowed to be sold is the FDA. And the FDA is a very corrupt institution. It is very easy to manipulate, easy to buy out, and it's very biased and very politically motivated. You basically can get away with selling anything that aligns with certain big companies or big corporations. They can pretty much get away with anything because they can get FDA approval really easily with the foods that they're selling. So what that looks like is, we'll start with this. It's probably, well, we would think it's common knowledge, but with our poor education system, it's probably not. So a lot of foods in the United States have coloring dyes, which is blue 1, yellow 5, red 40, and a few others. Now, these are petroleum-based color dyes. And petroleum, like what's used in gasoline and fuel. So these are petroleum-based color agents that are put in almost every major brand food. At least that's, they use this color within its marketing, which is the only reason why they use color, is for that brand identity, that brand association, and that marketing, which helps it perform very well. People tend to get the more colorful food as opposed to the duller ones. There's just something in the psychology of that marketing that goes into that. But the dyeing agents, the red, blues, and yellows, they have been proven to be carcinogenic, and they are banned in almost every country outside of the United States because of their carcinogenic effects. To point out inconsistencies in the Surgeon General warnings and the FDA and whatnot, you have things like tea and cigarettes and other herbal supplements or herbal foods, anything plant-based, and they're have a message on the packaging that says may increase heart problems or may exacerbate other health issues and whatnot. So they have these things even for teas, which is okay. It's definitely important to know to watch out for allergic reactions and other issues that may be pronounced when you consume those products. But then you have something like cereal or fruit snacks or chips or drinks that are made with these coloring dyes, and there's no warnings about Surgeon General or possible carcinogenic effects of eating these foods, whereas for something natural like tea, you're gonna have warnings. But foods that have actual carcinogens and pose actual risks to health and well-being, they don't have any effects. That is a clear inconsistency, and it goes hand in hand with the corruption of the FDA, the power big businesses have on being able to sell food in pretty much whatever form they want. So the actual ingredients that go into the food we consume is not at all well protected. It's very obscure what ingredients go in, and it's obscure what those ingredients can do, how harmful they can be, and it's not regulated very well. It's regulated corruptly or not regulated at all, you can say. There's ingredients that we don't need to be eating, that are made from things we don't need to be consuming and going into our everyday diets. And then you wonder why a place like the United States has extremely high cancer rates, or extremely high diabetes rates, or heart disease, and mental issues, and all these other gastrointestinal problems. Is because we're consuming things that is extremely unhealthy to us, far more healthy than to whatever the opposition to pharmaceuticals is, such as tea. And so what that means is junk food is far less criticized by every step of the process than is other natural things. In the United States, what's considered being healthy is exercise and counting calories. So we'll go into both of these because it is a twofold problem. So for one, calories are sort of a made-up unit of measurement to kind of give you an indication of volume of energy or volume of nutrition that you're getting, not the quality or the type of nutrition. Calories are basically used as a way of saying you can eat, all of these foods. They could be fast foods or junk foods, and as long as you're within that calorie range for your body type and age, you're okay, as long as you exercise. It's not about the quality of food, says the distributors of junk food. I can't think of a better example than Coca-Cola, where they fund and they advertise and they help teach exercise as a means of health and well-being, and then go and sell one of the unhealthiest products on the planet that's readily available. And in a lot of places, especially poorer communities, it's more available than clean drinking water. You have soda. Soda's pretty much the unhealthiest thing we regularly consume. Not that it's inherently bad, it's just all the sugar and sodium in it, and a lot of the other sketchy chemicals and additives they put in some of the bigger name products, such as Coke and Pepsi and whatever else you can think of. But it's that marketing campaign to say exercise is how you need to be healthy, or what you need to do to be healthy. It's not what you eat, it's your lifestyle. If you have health problems or if you have stomach issues, it's because you're not exercising enough. And this is how the medical system, this is how the pharmaceutical industry, how doctors approach this issue. If you go into a doctor's office saying you have stomach issues, they're going to tell you need to exercise more, you need to do this and take this pill or take this vitamin. But what they're not going to tell you is don't eat that kind of food, or don't consume this drink. Doctors aren't taught to consider nutrition from their college studies. I believe there was a statistic that looked at doctors in the United States. I believe it was 1 in 4 doctors would pass basic nutrition exam, meaning 70 or so % of doctors would not pass a nutrition test, a basic nutrition test. They're not being taught that, because the pharmaceutical industry is basically the backbone of the medical industry, and the average person who's unwell is prescribed medication, as in pharmaceutical medication, and not prescribed a better lifestyle, a better dieting, and whatnot. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry, and it's not going anywhere anytime soon. And more people, over half of Americans have or are suffering gastrointestinal issues, which is well over 100 million people. You can't sit there and say that's an exercise issue when exercise is, second or third on the list of how to be healthy, with what you actually consume being number one. Because what you eat is what gets broken down into its component parts, into its minerals and chemicals, and then sent into every cell in your body. That's what your body's using as fuel. That's what will become different cells. That's what becomes your blood. And so what you eat is far more important than exercise. So the idea that it's all calories and you need this amount of calories and this amount of protein and this amount of carbs and so on and so forth. That is, I believe, a grave misunderstanding of how nutrition works and how our bodies function with these elements going into our digestive systems. Since we're talking about like what's on the label of foods, we can take a look at an example. So we're going to look at PAM cooking spray, and this stuff looks like a relatively benign cooking instrument or cooking additive, but the what's misleading is the serving size. So a serving size is a quarter of a second of spray is one serving. And so what food companies do, because they can do this, because the FDA is non-existent in terms of regulating anything, what they can do is, where they have the measurements in grams, they can have a different measurement in place. They could say, okay, here there's 0 grams, but that doesn't mean there isn't 900 milligrams or 800 milligrams. Because what they've done is divided the servings in a way that misleads the rest of the nutritional values. But it could be true for that serving, but the serving is so small that it appears that there's nothing in there, when there could be 500 milligrams in every serving. And if each serving is a quarter of a second, you can start to see how those numbers can add up really quickly, just because they were conniving with the unit of measurement they use and the way they divided it. And so companies are going to maximize the serving size to nutritional value proportion. And then going down, you can see the ingredients. And the ingredients is a whole other issue in and of itself, because while it may seem like they're listing every ingredient, they aren't telling you what ingredient or how much of that ingredient is, or where that ingredient comes from. For example, they can have an ingredient that is prepared in a way, like you could have cornstarch as an ingredient, but not say what went into that cornstarch or how that cornstarch was made. They could just say cornstarch. They can put, I guess what I'm trying to say is, they can put, instead of just raw materials, they're putting finished ingredients. And they're listing those finished ingredients into the product that you see before you. And so there's no indication of what those ingredients come from, or what went into those ingredients that then go into. So as you can see, there's a lot of major avenues that companies can take to, it's not even gaming the system's set up to be this way. The food and agriculture system is designed to be unhealthy. It's designed to maximize sales through branding, usually through the calorie counting system, which ultimately minimizes your health, which then you need to then see a doctor and ask, why am I feeling so bad? Well, what you're eating is doing that, but they're not going to tell you that. They're going to tell you to exercise and take pharmaceuticals. I can't think of a better example than observing gastrointestinal clinics neighboring places like Burger King or McDonald's, just fast food chains. I mean, they literally have gastro clinics next to fast food chains, next to fast food restaurants. Sums up that side of the argument right there. Poor nutrition education and poorly regulated laws on food and food labels. There's also other issues such as food deserts, where people, usually poor communities or minority communities, don't have access to healthy foods. They won't have like a grocery store or grocery chain nearby, and so the only food they do have nearby is usually fast foods and really unhealthy restaurants, and all of that keeps a population poor, keeps them sick, which then they give to the pharmaceutical industry. So you're really being taxed for what you eat, because if you don't have access to healthy food, you're going to have to pay the pharmaceutical tax just to try to feel healthy, when you should have access to fruits and vegetables and higher quality ingredients in general. And so these big food chains and these big corporations and companies like Coca-Cola and whatnot, they spend millions on advertising exercise, and pharmaceuticals tell you, and doctors tell you to take medication, and our schooling education just tells us to count calories and to exercise to be healthy. So that's kind of the first part of the video. That's the problem. And you could probably spend hours talking each of those problems. But for a general overview, I think that works, and you can get started in looking into that stuff, especially if you're suffering from any of these ailments. But hopefully the solutions will be intriguing and helpful if you want to learn more about nutrition, if you want to try to be healthier and avoid these billion-dollar industries feeding off of poor education and ignorance and the lies that they propagate. So in thinking about all these problems and learning about nutrition and whatnot, and corruption in the FDA, and how doctors aren't taught nutrition, and how sketchy labels and nutrition labels on food can be, thinking of solutions to how do you educate people now, especially people out of school, and especially because changing the curriculum in school would be near impossible at this point. I guess one of the ideas I had, or one of the solutions that could be experimented and to see how it works. How do you educate people, and how do you get them eating healthy? I think that starts with grocery stores. I think if you want to fix our health problem, you need to start by changing the layout of a grocery store, of a typical grocery store. I would say on average they probably have like dairy on one side, fruits on another, like poultry and fish and meats and deli stuff on another. Then they have rows of snacks or pastas and rice and breads and stuff like that. It's kind of random when you think about it, but I think we're so used to it that you couldn't think of it in any other way. And this change that I'm going to talk about would probably take some getting used to, but could work in the long run. It would have to be tested out and seen over the course of over the course of a few years in various communities and see the impact it has on the people individually and the community as a whole. So I'm going to use 3 different layouts that could be arranged. There could be a lot more. So the first would be based off of flavor profile. So the flavor profiles are typically bitter, sweet, salty, sour, and savory. So you would divide the store into those categories. So you'd have savory in one corner, salty in another, bitter, sweet, and sour, each with its own pocket of that grocery store. And the reason why you would do this is because if you have an ailment, or if you're dealing with problems, or if you just don't know what to make or what to eat, this divides the store into sections that doesn't really require any further education. You kind of learn as you shop. And I think part of the experience of buying food should be educational. You should be exploring new foods and understanding how those foods make you feel. And I think instead of saying that they're snacks and bread and frozen meals, you should say that this is sweet, this is salty, this is bitter, this is sour, this is savory. And so when you're shopping for food, you can really think about what you feel like eating or what you need to do to balance out your body. If you, for example, have high blood pressure, you could stay away from salty foods. And you know which ones are salty now because the salty ones are in the salty section. Or if, on the other hand, if you have low blood pressure, you can focus more on salty foods. Or if you sweat a lot or have oily skin or clammy skin, you can stay away from acidic foods and go for more bitter foods, and maybe even savory foods. And so you can really start to feel how you react to these flavor types. Obviously, if something tastes like something, there's usually ingredients going into that do that. Salty foods are generally salty. They have salt in them, sodium. This isn't always the case, of course. There's plenty of foods that are salty without having sodium. But you'll get a better sense of how foods balance out your body and how you can make informed decisions simply through shopping. You'll be educated through shopping, even if it's not, the most high-level education on nutrition. You'll have that idea that these foods are going to make me feel better, these foods are going to make me feel worse. So the second idea was to arrange grocery stores based off of your Ayurveda type. So they would be divided into the 3 Ayurvedic types, which again I'll put a picture up. But that philosophy is all about, or that lifestyle, that diet practice, and it's the complementary or the lifestyle side of yoga. It's yoga and Ayurveda. They go hand in hand, and they're usually, or traditionally, I guess you could say, practiced together in context of each other. So you could arrange this store to allow for people who know their Ayurvedic types. And I guess what you would do at that point is have like brochures that you could pick up as soon as you enter the store, or have like a map somewhere so you can see your Ayurveda and which one you could go shop to, and understand why, or the philosophy behind and the science behind your Ayurveda. I think this video is already pretty long, but the third one is this idea of blood type eating, of the 4 blood types. The idea was that each blood type has a food group or food groups that it has evolved over, tens of thousands of years to process better. Whether it's a farmer, agricultural foods, or hunter-gatherer foods. Again, I'll put a picture up, but you could arrange them by that, and what you would probably want to do is have different grocery store chains try out their own layouts. Like, you could have one grocery store that is based off the Ayurvedas, and another one that is based off of the flavor profiles, and another off the blood types, and so on and so forth. There's plenty of other diet theories out there that could be tested, but I think it's important to use something, have a direction within your grocery store layout that can guide people, educate them into finding food that's good for them, and that could potentially help with budgeting. If you know all the foods that you like if you're someone into bitter food and it's very hard to find bitter food, knowing that it's bitter in a grocery store, you could have all these different bitter foods in front of you, and then you could find the ones that are fit within your budget. But it's important for people to know that so many of our foods are unhealthy, or cancer causing, or increasing the chance of diabetes, or increasing gastrointestinal problems, heart problems, bone problems, and eye problems, and skin problems. The drug we're most addicted to is sugar, and it's almost impossible to avoid sugar in the United States. And nobody realizes it's an addictive substance, yet they'll consume it every day. Not that all sugar is bad, it's just the type of sugar we tend to use, which is not very processable by our bodies. I'll use this example. I've used it in past videos, I think, but I'll keep using it. You don't feed chocolate to a dog because it's allergic to it. There's a number of foods we shouldn't be eating because, while we may not have it as an extreme reaction to it, it still gives us problems in our digestive systems, and makes us break out or feel bad, or makes us lethargic. And food should always be energizing if you're trying to eat as healthy as you can. But again, some of the more serious issues is not everyone has access to foods, and healthy foods, and water. So the alternative is cheap fast foods and soda. That is another overarching problem within this whole poor nutrition thing. Yeah, and just things like the food pyramid, and calories, and protein. Those are like the three things that you'll learn in nutrition throughout your whole life. Is you need these food groups at this amount of calories with this much protein, and you're good to go. And exercise 30 minutes a day, and you'll be healthy as a newborn calf. But the reality is, we can look at the medical statistics for all of our issues that are growing every year exponentially. We're getting less and less healthy. Multi-billion-dollar businesses are never going to just be like, okay, you guys need to not eat this stuff anymore. They're going to keep profiting off of that. It's up to more altruistic companies and up to individuals to hopefully find people talking about how to be healthier. I don't care if it's my video or different videos. There's a huge issue that's making people sickly and agitated and lethargic, and keeping people suppressed in their situations. And it starts with food and water, and getting the proper nutrition to your body. I've rambled on long enough. So yeah, I had a headache, or have a headache. So if I'm looking off or sounding off, then that's probably why. But yeah, I think I'll end the video here. I'll put some links in the description too, so you can read about if you're interested in the blood type diet, or Ayurveda's, or if you just want to look up nutrition labels and stop and think about the serving size with the nutrition information and the ingredient list, and look out for the blues, reds, and yellows. And if there's an ingredient you don't know the name of, you should look it up. That's how you learn. That's how you get more educated in this stuff. Look up what these ingredients are that they list, especially the really obscure ones, or even the basic ones like xanthan gum. Everyone should know what those are. And that's how you get educated, because the system isn't going to educate you, because they're going to profit off of your ignorance and your unhealthiness that they propagate, that they support, and that they pretty much force people to have. Yeah, that's, I think, the end of the video. So thanks for watching, and peace out.